on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot.
Hello, all you bloody Valentines. Welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Happy holiday weekend, Dylan.
Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well.
Oh, yeah? How you feeling today?
I feel good. How are you?
Sad.
Oh, no.
Because it literally is a bloody Valentine's Day. I have my period and I hate everything.
Oh, my God.
I've spent half the day crying.
She hates me in particular.
I don't hate you, Dylan. I love you. I just don't want to look at your face sometimes.
Well, and them's the breaks. I guess.
Nobody's going to break your stride.
Yeah, that's right.
Can't nobody hold you down.
Nope. I'm always upright. I'm like one of those bobblehead things that you knock it over and it pops right back up.
A weeble?
Yeah.
You mean like the weebles, they wobble but they don't fall down?
Exactly.
You do kind of look like a bobblehead because you have a giant head. We've talked about this before, but your head is enormous.
I bet you think I know everything.
It's like, head, paper, no. Move that gigantic cranium of yours and get the paper. It's like an orange on a toothpick.
That's exactly what it's like.
I love So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Is that what that's from? I didn't know. I was at a loss.
Yes. It's a hilarious movie. Speaking of films, we just wrapped up watching, and it's an older film. I think it came out in 2008, but The Devil's Knot, which is based on a book of the same title about the West Memphis Three. And I have to say, watching that film, revisiting that case again, I mean, it's something I think we've, any true crime aficionados out there, you're very familiar with the West Memphis Three. So infuriating.
Yeah, I think it's the worst example of just a runaway prosecution. They already formed these ideas. Investigators, everyone in the community formed these ideas about these kids. They're Satanists. They killed those boys.
Human sacrifices.
Human sacrifice, occult, blah, blah, blah.
Because they wear black and listen to Metallica?
Yeah.
I mean, jeez.
But the evidence in the case did not support this in the least.
There is so much reasonable doubt with the evidence presented.
And there is no, direct physical evidence, no DNA, no fingerprints, no shoe smudges, nothing.
I think the real villain in the story, aside from whoever the true murderer or murderers are, the judge. He is the fucking villain in this story. He makes me so mad.
Well, it's just he wasn't being very fair about anything. And anything that could bring up any kind of just a inkling of reasonable doubt, he would not allow it.
His judge card needs to be revoked.
Oh, my God.
He's just a huge piece of shit. Well, it's just terrible. These three boys were sent to prison, spent so many years there for a crime they did not commit. And then the families, they are getting no justice, and the real killer is somewhere out there.
And it's probably killed again. Because that was awfully... that was just like... I'm not sure, but it was just vicious. It was child predator. And I didn't see child predator when I looked at these three kids. That was someone, the top, we all know about it, The child predator gets her hands on a kid, opportunistic. Oh, my God.
I don't know. And then you go down, the suspect list. And, of course, you had, the Chris Morgan character who fled to California just a few days after the murders along with his buddy. And that's sketchy. Then you had the Mr. Bojangles fella who wandered in the fast food place, caked in mud, covered in blood.
Yeah,
and
that guy.
And the police just disregard this.
Oh, we never sent those samples we took from the women's bathroom there off. We didn't send that off.
Yeah. So
and by the way, they're gone.
If you're looking for something to stream and you haven't seen The Devil's Knot, I recommend it. It's on that Hulu.
It's on that Hulu.
It's on that Hulu. So check it out if you're interested in learning more about the West Memphis Three and you're not
and if
over that case now.
if you somehow don't know of the West Memphis Three, it'd be a good place to start. But then I'm going to suggest you go straight to the, was there 3 documentaries?
Paradise Lost.
Yup.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Good content. Check it out. Are you ready, Dylan, to get into a heavy hitter today?
Yeah, this is unfortunately not going to get any happier.
Well, today's episode, we're going to talk about a serial killer, pedophile, cannibal, and necrophile wrapped up in a profoundly repugnant monster burrito.
Okay.
We're talking about Arthur Shawcross, the Genessee River Killer, the monster of the river, the Rochester Strangler.
Oh, he's so gross.
He is disgusting. And he was quite a ladies' man. And as we get into the story, you'll see what I'm talking about. Don't know how he looks like a human version of Mr. Potato Head.
No, but did you see some of his early, the mugshots from back with those kids that he did actually go? Well, anyway, some of his mugshots from his youth, he looked quite a bit better.
Did he? Because I feel like
Yes.
he'd still look like Mr. Potato Head.
No, he looked a lot better than he does.
With this big bulbous nose and like he just, ugh.
He didn't age well at all.
No. He aged like a rotten potato.
He aged like who he is on the inside because he's just black and empty. And that's how he looks on the outside.
Plus, I just imagine he smells like a rotten potato before it turns into vodka.
Oh, man.
When it's just fermenting in the bottom of your little potato bin and it's sprouted some eyes and it's all shrivelly.
Are you talking about when you smell the potatoes and you're like, ooh, what is that smell?
Yeah.
Oh, and you find out it's the potatoes up under the counter that are sprouting and starting to grow and shit?
Right. So I just imagine that's what Arthur Shawcross smells like because he is that potato.
Like, no, he's the 3 potatoes in the very bottom of the bag that have started liquefying.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
Yeah, and they're all shriveled.
Yeah.
Almost like a California raisin or something, but they don't have the vocal talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's juice.
Ew, yes. Like I said, right
And it's
before it
so
turns
bad.
to vodka.
Oh, man.
Okay. So Arthur John Shawcross was born June 6th, 1945 at a U.S. Naval Hospital in Maine. Of course, he's a Gemini.
Of course.
The Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, the twins. Arthur was 2 months premature. He was also born with a condition called Jacob syndrome, which is an XYY syndrome. It's a rare chromosomal, I'm trying to get that out, disorder that affects males. It is caused by the presence of an extra Y chromosome. Now, males normally have one X and one Y chromosome. However, individuals with this syndrome have one X and two Y chromosomes. His father, Arthur Sr., was a corporal in the U.S. Army. After baby Arthur was healthy enough to leave the hospital, his mother, Bessie, moved to Watertown, New York, and in with her sister-in-law while her husband finished his military service. Arthur was the first of 4 children. He would have 2 sisters, Donna and Jeannie, and a younger brother named James. Now, what I could find about Watertown, I mean, it seems like it's a relatively small town, and at this time it was kind of known for like farms, just your typical kind of rural town.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, and the river kind of comes through town. Looks like the river's a big part of the area.
Yeah, definitely, and I think now it's considered like a kayaking destination.
I could see that.
While living in Watertown, several relatives of the Shawcrosses moved into a specific area that folks would nickname Shawcross Corner. And I think if you grew up in a small town, especially in rural communities, there are these particular areas. I mean, the town we live in, my family in particular has several communities that share my, family's last name.
Yep.
Because that's where they all lived, right? So you might have a couple of acres of land and you got 4 or 5 different relatives living on that land. So they called it Shawcross Corner. But Arthur was a very strange kid and he didn't fit in with the other children. First of all, he spoke in a baby voice all the time. And this would continue into his teenage years.
What?
Yeah, he spoke in a baby voice.
Oh, man.
Much like you do, Dylan, when you're trying to be obnoxious and gross me out.
Oh, my gosh. He'd be like, baby, gonna take the car out.
Yes, like that.
Like, Arthur, you're 16 now, so Let's just stop with the baby voice.
And he used baby talk. He chronically wet the bed and had zero social skills. From an early age, Arthur had a difficult relationship with his mother. He will allege his mother was very domineering. And we've heard this time and time again. How many serial killers / psychopaths have issues with their mother?
Moms have a lot of power on whether or not to make a full-blown monster. I mean, they really do.
Well, you know what they say, Dylan. A mother is a boy's best friend.
Yeah.
Arthur also craved attention, and he felt his siblings received more attention than he did. So he'd act out hoping to get noticed. I mean, even if it meant negative attention. Arthur will claim there is a lot of brutal physical punishment doled out in the Shawcross household. Art Sr. often spanks him with a belt, which draws blood. And because oftentimes, like, the buckle will hit young Arthur's flesh and break the skin.
Well, damn, Dad, you're supposed to use the other end of the belt.
His first year of school, Arthur misses a total of 33 days. By age 6, Arthur was running away from home, which is incredibly unusual. What 6-year-old runs away from home?
Yeah, but like for real, like he's ready to get out of there.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to be out.
Yeah.
Like that SpongeBob meme.
Huh.
He says he was molested by his mother, but then the story kind of interchanges over the years. He will also say his Aunt Tina, whom supposedly, I guess, walked around the house in her underwear all the time, forced young Arthur to perform oral sex on her. And for the rest of his life, he's going to have an obsession with oral sex and female genitalia.
Yes, it's definitely something left a mark on him.
I should also detail that Arthur had an extremely large penis, even as a child.
Oh.
When he was 5, a doctor told his mother, Bessie, that it was the size of a fully developed 16-year-old.
Well, that's something you would notice, right? I mean,
in his little Buster Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that damn toddler's packing, bruh.
I'm not sure those underoos are going to work for you, Arthur.
No.
Get that boy some boxer shorts. At school, Arthur was the subject of bullying. He often hid under radiators and the teacher's desk. The kids nicknamed him Oddie, Oddie, because he was an oddball. He was a loner. He spent most of his time by himself. Even at recess, he didn't engage with the other kids. Of course, he's still using the baby talk, and he cries a lot.
Well, that's not going to help.
By 6, Arthur is running away from home, as I mentioned. It's reported that when he's around 7, he becomes a chronic masturbator.
So, kidding aside, him using this baby voice, continuing to do it, he's got to be getting a certain type of reaction from most people. And it's probably not positive, right? Like either ridicule or them just like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's weird. And you got to know that that's how people perceive it, but he continues to do it. So I wonder why. What would make him, or why he thinks. I mean, sometimes kids that are picked on or stuff decide, we talked about this the other day, they decide to be like the annoying kid. Like if you're going to pick on me or talk shit to me all the time, I'm just going to be that kid nobody wants to be around because they just do like really weird, mistimed things. Right.
Or like he just doesn't understand social cues or something.
Well, yeah, that's another, or something in his head.
Man, there was a kid in my elementary school who was so obnoxious. And I still remember this kid. And I've often wondered what happened to him because I just imagine he's probably in prison. He's probably Arthur Shawcross. He would eat paste. You know, the buckets are like the little cups of finger paste.
Yeah.
The Elmer's paste. I don't even know why that was a thing. It was so gross. He would eat that shit. He would bark. Like we would be sitting in class like doing an assignment and he would just start barking.
Okay.
Like climb under the teacher's. Like he was such a strange kid.
So I think sometimes kids become that kid for what I described.
So.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would keep doing it. It's going to continue to make you more and more ostracized. And I don't know, maybe that's what he wanted or you get used to it.
Maybe it's the whole thing about anything to get attention, even if it's negative attention. He's getting attention.
Well, yeah, it could be that.
It's a way to be the center of attention, even if people are being cruel to him. Again, he sits by himself at recess. He's bullied by other kids, so he begins targeting younger or weaker kids, becoming a bully himself. And I think that happens quite a bit.
Well, yeah, it just goes in a, like a cycle there. The bully gets bullied by someone in their lives, and then they turn around and do it to someone else.
He's an above average student. He makes mostly A's and B's at school. Now, when Arthur is about 8 years old, his grades begin slipping, and this is also coupled with the other strange behaviors. So it is suggested that he undergoes some psychological testing. The outcome is that Arthur suffers from feelings of inadequacy and rejection. They also note an extreme hatred of his mother. It is determined Arthur's IQ is around 86, which is below average.
Okay, so, wow, he's got some kind of warning signs there, don't you think?
Around this time, he suffers his first head injury when he is hit in the head with a rock. He had to be hospitalized and was given stitches. After the head injury, Arthur will suffer from abnormalities such as numbness in parts of his body, along with some pretty significant concentration problems. Shortly, go ahead.
Sounds like that was a pretty big rock that hit him in the head.
Right.
It doesn't sound like just kids throwing gravel or something like
a
that.
pebble?
Yeah.
Like it was more like a boulder?
Yeah, something that could actually whack his brain around a little bit, give him a concussion, all that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Now, shortly after, Bessie discovers that Arthur Sr. is a bigamist. He had a wife and child who lived in Australia.
Man, that would be so hard to do. Have two families.
Right?
I could not ever even attempt at my money. How does that work?
Well, I mean, they're living in Australia. This was a relationship he, I guess, created, continued, whatever, while he was in the military.
Yeah. All right.
So now he's back in the States. He's got a wife and children in the United States. So it doesn't seem like he's too actively involved with the Australian wife and child. But still,
it's a woman and a child he's never told you about.
This causes a lot of problems. Bessie becomes more volatile and controlling. After this discovery, the marriage is never the same. Arthur Sr. responds by becoming withdrawn. He keeps to himself and seemingly less involved with the family. Young Arthur can't take his home life anymore. And again, he leaves a note behind saying, "I'm running away."
How old is he now?
Oh, like 7, 8.
Oh, so it's not even that long since he ran away at 6.
By 10, Arthur is becoming more violent. He begins breaking into houses, shoplifting, lighting fires, and torturing animals.
Red flags.
Right. So I'm going to speak a little bit on this animal abuse. So if this is not your bag, you might want to skip forward a few minutes. Or maybe just don't listen to this episode because it's pretty fucked up.
No, it's horrible. Yeah. If you're on the squeamish side or any of that, and this just hits so many things. It does. Violence to women, kids, animals. I mean, author. Am I saying Arthur is Arthur?
It's Arthur. An
author. I know, writes books.
Writes books, Dylan.
Arthur.
Okay. Like the PBS cartoon, Arthur.
Okay. Yeah, but he is just a fucking monster.
He drowns kittens. He rips the feathers off of baby birds. He tortures frogs and turtles. Arthur has a lifelong love of fishing. As a child, he enjoys shaving the scales off the fish while they're still alive, watching them slowly die. I mean, he's a sadistic little prick.
I've never, ever gotten why someone would want to hurt little animals or little defenseless animals, just to watch them when you have full control of them. They're not dangerous in the least bit. Could you ever do? I could just never understand kids that did shit like that.
Well, one, I was not a child who really liked animals, so I probably wouldn't want to pick up a fish and skin the scales off.
Well, yeah.
And no, I would never drown a kitten. How would you even torture a turtle? I don't know.
just stabbing it with stuff, I guess.
Pluck the little downy feathers off of baby birds. I mean, what the hell? Who would even think to do that? They're so cute, the little birds, especially when they're like just born and they're kind of naked and ugly.
Yeah.
They're like so ugly, they're cute.
Yeah, and then you're just going to pinch his little head off.
It's just so fucking weird.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Arthur works for a farmer sometimes who teaches him about bestiality. As if Arthur needs something else to occupy his time, right? The farmer tells Arthur that a sheep is the closest thing to having sex with a woman. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Well, I guess if you can get that, and you know, it's almost as good as getting that if you're telling yourself that, but I gotta guess it's different.
Little do you know, Dylan, my body is covered in 99% fleece. I need a good shearing later.
Oh my goodness.
Arthur has sex with the sheep, cows, and he will brag that he killed a chicken while having sex with it.
All right.
So Arthur is a chicken fucker. Not even, like, that's not even funny. He's, like, literally a chicken fucker.
A chicken torturer with his big meat? Jeez.
He falls into the river on a family outing and sustains another head injury. Now, instead of taking him to the hospital, his family thinks this is just another cry for attention because Arthur is somewhat of a hypochondriac, always saying like he's not feeling well for attention. So nothing is done about the second head injury.
That's exactly what he needed to improve his behaviors.
A good head injury that goes ignored, yes.
A good untreated head injury, a second one.
The sexual abuse Arthur alleges continues. He says his mother sodomized him with a broomstick and threatened him with a butcher knife. Arthur is in a sexual relationship with his sister throughout junior high school, which is something his sister denies. He's held back in the 4th grade and then again in 8th grade, so he's like 3 years older than the other kids.
So he's going to be that big weird kid?
Yep, he is definitely that big weird kid. He will claim that he has oral sex with many neighborhood kids. He still has nightmares. He's wetting the bed. He hits every mark on the McDonald Triad.
Every single one.
Everyone.
It's like it was
everyone and then some.
It was like it was written about him, but there's extra ones.
It's like all these new streaming channels that are like Streaming Channel Plus, right? So it's like Arthur is on the McDonald Triad Plus. So he comes with all these extra channels.
Jeez.
Arthur's insatiable sexual appetite continues, and many psychologists will later say his fascination with oral sex is due to his inability to maintain an erection. Because he is troubled with ED, erectile dysfunction, throughout his life.
Oh,
and even as a teenage boy.
I guess that would make you lean the one way. Yeah, I mean, if it works.
At 14, Arthur is hitchhiking when he's picked up by a man who essentially kidnaps the boy and violently rapes him. Now, this seals Arthur's ideas about sex and violence. Arthur will state later that this is the first time he's ever achieved an orgasm outside of oral sex.
Being raped?
Yes.
Okay.
He also runs away from home again. This time he makes it all the way to the Canadian border before he's apprehended and brought back.
So it's not funny. I mean, if any of this stuff true he grew up with, it was horrible.
I know. And this is a good time for us to talk about this. So we need to take what Arthur says with a grain of salt because he's also a habitual liar.
Well, that's one of the reasons I keep laughing is because I know, but everyone listening is not going to know what you're saying.
Yeah. So everything that Arthur says is probably bullshit. And as we get into the story, you will see that he is a pathological liar. He inflates these stories. I mean, just...
He likes to hear the sound of his own voice.
He does.
And he just goes on and on and on.
So it's really hard to know if these stories and these alleged tales of abuse with his family, if any of this is even true.
Well, yeah, when you have multiple siblings, both parents, grandparents, everyone around you saying, no, that didn't happen like that, either it did happen. They don't want to admit to it, right?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, his sister denies having an incestuous
Right.
relationship with him because maybe as an adult she doesn't want to admit that.
It's either it did happen, they're not admitting it, or it didn't happen at all.
And it's all in Arthur's head.
And it's kind of in his head, and he kind of comes up with these. He likes to give legitimacy and reasons for why he's doing what he's doing.
That's true. He loves to have a good excuse. He likes to have a crutch. I did this because of this.
Exactly.
So it's really hard to know if any of this is even true, what he's told people. Now, at one point, Arthur tries to kill his female cousin with a baseball bat, and her boyfriend takes the bat and basically kicks Arthur's ass, which he, runs away crying and doing the baby talk. And this is when he's like 14, 15.
Oh my God.
But you can see that his propensity for violence is growing. It's escalating. Arthur fails 8th grade, as I mentioned before. So he's 15 years old and he's repeating another year of school, like another year of 8th grade. He does attempt to join the wrestling team, which is kind of the first time he's trying to fit in a bit or participate in quote unquote like normal activities at school.
Well, yeah. Well, now I guess he's not getting bullied anymore since he's like 6 foot tall in 8th grade.
But eventually they let him go from the team because of his violent nature. Anytime someone makes him angry, he turns on them. So when he's on the wrestling team, I mean, part of the whole thing is, you're getting physical with other people. So if someone hurt him or performed a move, beat Arthur, performed some kind of wrestling move he didn't like, or he was upset because like this person got one over on him, he would just fly into a rage and just beat their ass.
So he just has no control over his anger and his temper.
Right. So his time on the wrestling team, short-lived.
Yeah, so here he tries to do this normal thing, but even he's too aggressive for the wrestler. You got to be kind of aggressive to be in a wrestling team, right? But he just said, you can't control it. He doesn't know where to stop, overreacting, or, when you just keep flipping out at the drop of a hat, people don't want to be around someone like that.
No, they don't.
No.
Arthur suffers another head injury when he's 16, and he's hospitalized for 4 days. So by 1960, Arthur drops out of 9th grade. At 18, Arthur is hit in the head again, this time with a sledgehammer, and spends more time in the hospital. Now, I believe, because I've seen conflicting reports of this, but I believe he was in a coma for a couple of days after being hit in the head with a sledgehammer. So he's going to end up with a total of 5 head injuries from ages 9 to 22.
Yeah, and some of them sound pretty traumatic.
So, and I don't know what happened what facilitated Arthur getting hit in the head with a sledgehammer. I don't know all the details behind that, but it almost makes me think someone maybe did this to him because he's just a piece of shit. I don't know.
Or he was attacking or flipping out, super angry.
So once he drops out of school, he continues with petty crimes such as peeping. He's a peeping Tom. He likes to peep on neighbors, and he often breaks into homes and burglarizes them. In 1963, he breaks into a Sears store and is caught red-handed, so he is given 18 months probation.
Well, he might need to go to jail for a little while, guys. His behavior is escalating.
The following year, he meets a woman named Sarah Chatterton while working at the Family Bargain Center.
Come on down to the Family Bargain Hut. If we don't have it for sale, you don't want it.
You don't need it.
You don't need it.
Arthur doesn't hold on to this job for very long. He's fired for his poor customer service skills.
Yeah, I guess so.
No kidding.
As soon as the customer disagrees with him, he starts berating them and cussing.
But he does manage to gain a wife in Sarah. Sarah will later say that she and Arthur didn't consummate their marriage for several weeks due to his inability to maintain an erection.
Well, that can directly affect said consummation.
He fathers a son named Michael, who was born October of 1965. But Arthur is arrested again, so his wife leaves them. He never has a relationship with his son, Michael. He can't hold a job down. He just bounces from like menial positions, gas station attendant, possibly working in like a store, but usually that doesn't last very long. He works quite a bit in food service. And he continues to break into homes. He's just like a menace.
Damn it, Arthur.
Of the various jobs he works during this time, he will say that the most rewarding was working in a butcher shop.
Of course. Of course, that's what he would say. Yeah, that's perfect.
He gets probation when he is 20 years old for beating up a 13-year-old kid after the child threw a snowball at Arthur's car.
Yeah, see, that's beyond. I mean, that's out of control kind of temper. I mean, if you're going to beat a kid up over that, I mean, really, what are you doing? You shouldn't be walking around society. You're dangerous.
When this happens, a psychologist labels him as emotionally unstable. You think? Jesus. In 1967, Arthur is drafted by the U.S. Army. He meets a woman named Linda Neary at a bar, and the pair marry. By now, his divorce from Sarah has been finalized. Now, Linda seems only interested in marrying Arthur for his money because she knows that he's going to be deployed to Vietnam. And while he's gone, Linda is seeing other men, spending Arthur's earnings. Arthur's Vietnam service will come into question later. So Arthur was a supply clerk who was in country for only about 13 months, in which he rarely left base and definitely did not see any combat. But Arthur will exaggerate or flat out lie about his experiences, calling himself a predator. He will say he was out in the thick of the shit beheading mama-sans. And that's like a direct quote.
And
is beheading mama-sans.
And cooking parts of their bodies and eating it and all this stuff. And I think it's just straight up lying.
Arthur will assert that he would go out on these secret one-man missions to take out the enemy. He will claim that he decapitates Vietnamese women with a machete. There's one in particular that he decapitated with a machete. He then cannibalized her body. And this was in order to get her accomplice to give up information.
Well, it sounds like he was a very effective soldier, I guess.
He claims to have raped and murdered multiple women in Vietnam. He single-handedly wiped out swaths of enemy combatants. In interviews, he says he was a weapons specialist. However, his service record shows nothing of this. Even his commanding officer will note that Arthur was never on any kind of mission. His Vietnam experiences are extremely inflated. Arthur can't remember the name of anyone he served with and made no friends while in Vietnam that he can remember. And let's think about this for a minute. Most service members, especially in a war, make lifelong friends. They forge relationships with those they serve with, but not Arthur. And the truth is, none of his fellow soldiers liked Arthur at all. They all thought he was a weirdo and just a plain, asshole. I mean, just like everyone else in his life.
Well, I think everyone that serves is going to have that handful of buddies, especially people you remember from boot camp, things like that. You've told me stories about plenty of people you weren't in a war zone, but you just remember going through boot camp with these people and this funny stories, and you have to work with people afterwards.
Well, right.
Living in
I've got
quarters.
shipmates, and I have friends that I made, and they are lifelong friends. People I still keep in touch with.
Yeah, and so if anyone's I can't remember a single person's name, I didn't have a group of friends or any of that, then you know that that's bullshit, and they're lying.
Or that something is not right.
You can't remember their direct, the direct supervision they answer to or anything. I mean, I just don't buy that at all.
While in the Army, Arthur sustains another head injury after falling off a 40-foot ladder. We need to get this guy a helmet.
This dude needs to stay on the ground.
He needs a helmet. I should also mention that while he's serving overseas, he's exposed to lead. In Vietnam, Arthur slept in a lead-lined ammo crate. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I did read this article a while back about this correlation between violence and lead exposure. And the study was trying to link violent serial killers of the boomer generation, the Gacy's, the Bundys, as being exposed to lead and lead paint and that kind of thing, and that it created this violence in them.
Oh,
which I thought was pretty interesting.
We can do an entire offbeat episode on that very article you're talking about.
Are you familiar with the article?
Yeah, just a little bit. And it's a we had the lead paint, lead in the gas, then we went and switched to unleaded gas, and just the connection to statistical crime across the nation, especially in the densely populated urban areas, places like that going down after we got lead out of the environment. So, yeah, some people wonder if that's what actually helped create all these serial killers during a certain period.
Is that where the phrase "get the lead out" comes from?
Maybe so. But I did not know that Arthur had a big exposure to lead like that.
Well, he slept in a lead-lined ammo crate.
Yeah, that's going to do it.
Coupled with these, tons of head injury. I mean,
it's like
that big old melon of his just banging into everything.
Well, and his mother, overbearing mother, if any of that's true about him growing up, the abuses, obviously that would be very traumatic in any form or fashion. So yeah, I don't know how else. It's like a perfect recipe.
Exactly.
For someone who he turns out to be.
Yeah, like if you were, what's his name, Emerald, and you're on a cooking show.
He was like, bam!
Bam! Add in some head injuries.
Just put a little taste of head injuries. I'll be like the old dude from the
like the
PBS.
Cajun cook?
Yeah. Was it Justin something?
Was it Prudhomme?
He say, I guarantee.
Was it Prudhomme?
I think so.
Or something? Yeah.
Oh, that was the best. But yeah, I'll put a little onion in it.
A little paprika, a little head injury. You got to add your little bit of lead right here.
A little wine for the recipe. A little wine for me.
Yourself? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man, he was the best.
He was the best.
But yes, this is like the perfect recipe for making a monster. And it's really sad.
For making a murderer.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can say that.
Why?
It's copyrighted.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, sue me.
Netflix will.
You know what you'll get out of me? Nothing, because you can't get blood out of a turnip, you fuckers.
What you gonna sue me for anyway? I ain't got nothing.
What are you gonna take my nice fancy sweatpants that I'm wearing today on Valentine's Day? Dylan even noticed that he was like, "Oh, look at you, you're all dressed up today because you're wearing your Champion sweatpants." And I was like, "That's right, baby. These black joggers were on clearance for like $10. You like them?"
Her pants and her jacket matches.
Woo! I told you I got dressed up.
Were we going out to the Applebee's?
We actually ordered takeout from Waffle House.
Oh, don't tell them that.
And that was our romantic Valentine's meal, right?
But you know what? It was some of the best Waffle House I've ever had in my life. So
you can't go wrong with that bacon, egg, and cheese Texas toast melt thingy.
Okay, so
It's really good.
It was very good. So here we are with Arthur. Another head injury. But
you know what, Dylan? It is time for us to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Arthur returned stateside, and he's stationed briefly at Fort Sill in Oklahoma. He continues setting fires like he did as a child. Arthur is extremely moody, attempting suicide at one point, and he's ordered to see an army shrink. Now, the army psychologist notes that Arthur gets some kind of sexual excitement from setting these fires. His second wife, Linda, witnesses much of Arthur's disturbing behavior, like much more than she did when they first got together. After being discharged from the army, the pair moved back to New York to a town called Clayton. The Shawcross family will note a change in Arthur's behavior as well. They say after he returned from Vietnam that he was even more peculiar, his behavior more erratic, he was irritable and seemed like he was constantly on edge. He just sounds like a real hateful asshole. Linda becomes pregnant, but miscarries after Arthur physically attacks her. Domestic violence is becoming more prevalent in their household. He's arrested on more burglary charges and then arson. In April of 1969, Arthur sets fire to the Knowlton Brothers paper mill, and then 5 months later, in September of 69, he burns down the Crowley Cheese Company where he'd once been employed.
What the hell, Arthur? People's got to work there.
Linda quickly divorces him after the miscarriage. He is sentenced to 5 years in Attica.
So he's come back from Vietnam and he's just kind of out of control. Sounds like he's way worse than he was. Everything that was an issue with him before he left are worse. Those issues are worse.
Like amplified.
Yes. and just complete antisocial, just shitty behavior. I mean, nobody wants to be around someone acting like this.
So anytime I see Attica, all I can think is Attica.
Well, I think that's true. Attica.
Yeah.
Attica. That's true for all of us.
A little Serpico for you.
Yeah.
But after he arrives at Attica, he's pretty quickly transferred to the Auburn Correctional Facility. And he claims this is because he was raped by 3 inmates. And of course, you know, he exacts revenge on those guys.
Oh.
I mean, this according to Arthur.
Yeah, I was going to say, is anyone else... Did this happen?
Arthur is like John Rambo in his own mind.
You started this war.
Yeah, Arthur's going to finish it. He spends a total of 22 months in prison, and he's paroled in early October of 1971. Now, during a prison riot that was sparked by some racial tension, Arthur saved the life of a prison guard, and this seals his early release.
And so he's doing 5 years for arson.
Arson,
right?
Burning down those 2 businesses, the paper mill and the cheese factory.
Yeah, well, that's a huge deal, man. That can devastate a local economy. You know what I mean? The tax is gone.
Injure people.
It could injure
kill
countless
people.
Yeah,
I mean, come on. And who would burn down a cheese factory? Cheese is delicious.
What an asshole. Or the paper mill, dude.
Oh, come on. You don't like paper mills.
I take that personally.
You act like you have pride in your work.
Well, I do.
Oh, that's so cute.
I'm proud of it.
Upon being paroled, Arthur moves back home to Watertown, where he gets a job with the Public Works Department as like a handyman type. He marries a 3rd time. So how does a guy who looks like Mr. Potato Head keep getting wives?
I hate to say it. Maybe it's the big meat.
You think these women are marrying him because he's like packing the
adult
John Holmes like penis?
The adult penis on the 6-year-old.
The porn star penis?
Oh, I wouldn't even want to be around a kid who had that big of a junk. Because they would be like dragging it all over the place and shit.
I feel uncomfortable with this
They would not be sanitary with it. Could you imagine?
I feel uncomfortable with this conversation, Dylan.
Okay, just saying.
His wife, Penny Sherbino, is a friend of his sister. She has 2 children from a previous marriage. Now, Penny gets pregnant, but has a miscarriage. Arthur is accused of sexually assaulting Penny's younger sister, which he will deny. Arthur, who is, like I said, he always enjoyed fishing. He spends most of his free time outdoors, fishing the nearby streams and rivers. Now, the townsfolk note that Arthur's behavior is fairly alarming when it comes to children. Arthur will hang around public parks with the little kids. He is often seen rolling around on the ground, wrestling with them.
Yeah.
People think he's quiet and creepy. Arthur has this unusual habit of stuffing grass, leaves, and other debris items down the pants of children.
That's a very unusual habit. And anyone who plays with kids like this, I'm sorry, is, it's going to be an alarm. It's going to be a red flag for most adults. Because, you can get out there and play with kids, but, yucking it up and all that grab-ass stuff, that's weird. That's what other kids do to each other. That's a little much.
Well, it's one thing to maybe be at a cookout or something and you play Frisbee with the kids or you're going to shoot some hoops with them or something. But I'm not going to roll around and wrestle on the ground with someone else's kids and then stuff grass or whatever else down that child's pants.
No.
That is very strange.
That's not going to work.
And if I saw someone doing that to my kid, that's not going to go well.
I would lose it.
I'm going to be okay with this. But local police are familiar with Arthur and this behavior because there have been a lot of parents who've complained about him.
Well, he doesn't sound like he has a bunch of friends with kids and stuff. So he's it sounds like he's kind of inserting himself in these situations where there's kids.
Like, hey, I'm going to go down to the public park.
I'm at the park and now
I'm going to play with these kids.
Yeah. And we're going to run around and all that stuff. And I'm going to grab them up and squeeze them and all that. No, that's not cool.
On May 2nd of 1972, Arthur lured a 10-year-old named Jack Blake into some woods under the premise of fishing. Arthur was often seen, as I mentioned, at the local parks, and he would invite kids to go fishing with him. Jack and his brother had been on previous fishing expeditions with Arthur. The boy never showed up at home. Of course, Mrs. Blake was frantic, as most parents would be, desperately trying to locate her son. And it is my understanding from some reports that other children had seen the boy go with Arthur.
Yeah, I'm sure.
When Mrs. Blake confronts Arthur about being with her son, he refutes this, saying, "I have no idea where Jack could be." She continues hounding Arthur, and he gives her different accounts of his whereabouts that afternoon. Mrs. Blake knew in her heart that Arthur had something to do with her son's disappearance. She took her concerns to the police, but they just didn't buy into her theory.
Well, I don't understand why you wouldn't even go to this man and, ask him yourself some questions or, start looking for this little child.
4 months later, an 8-year-old girl named Karen Ann Hill was visiting Watertown with her mother for the Labor Day weekend, and she goes missing. Her body is discovered under the Black River Bridge. Arthur was fishing under the same bridge and was seen eating an ice cream cone there on the day that her body was found, revisiting the crime scene, which is something that he's going to do time and time again.
Yeah, he's one of those classic guys who relives it, gets something from going back time and again to the scene of the crime.
Karen Hill has been suffocated, grass is stuffed in her mouth and nose, and her body had been brutalized. Now, Watertown was a safe place for kids. People were freaking out about the possibility that there was a boogeyman preying on children. This was the kind of place where kids played outside. They rode bikes around town all day with no supervision. Kids would leave at like 8 o'clock in the morning after breakfast, and they didn't come home till dark, till supper time.
Yeah, and any time a parent probably goes looking for it, everyone else has seen your child too. Your neighbor, so-and-so down at the hardware store, just a small town like that where kids would be safe for the most part to run around like that in groups.
After this happens, in conjunction with the Jack Blake disappearance, parents stop letting their kids go to parks or play by themselves. Everyone is on alert. Arthur becomes a prime suspect in the murder. A detective who is familiar with the Blake case took Arthur in for questioning and applies pressure. Now, he's a known associate of the missing Jack Blake, and now he's at the crime scene with Karen Hill's body. He's arrested on October 3rd, 1972, and he's held for 2 weeks. During this time, he finally confesses to the murders.
Well, there you go.
This is where things get so fucked up, though.
I can't believe this that comes next.
Arthur will tell police a horrific story of how he took Jack Blake into the woods. He made the boy strip naked and then run, almost like The Most Dangerous Game or something like that. Arthur hunted the boy down. He then sexually assaults the child and strangles him. Arthur then removes the child's heart and genitals. Arthur will detail how he cannibalized the boy's body parts.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that. The torture element of that, this child running, trying to get away, and being literally hunted down. I mean, I could only imagine what was going through his poor mind.
Arthur then buried the boy in a very shallow grave. Now, in order to get a conviction, the state makes Arthur a deal. If he will take this plea and say that he's guilty of manslaughter in the Karen Hill murder, he's going to get a reduced sentence. And part of this is just an effort to get Arthur to show them where Jack Blake is buried.
Yeah, they say this deal is because they want to recover the remains of him as well, which I get that part. But this is a little bit too sweetheart of a deal in my book. And all the ones I've ever heard of, this is too much.
He's not charged with Jack Blake's murder. He takes this reduced sentence of manslaughter in the Karen Hill case.
Yeah, he's pleading guilty to 1 count of manslaughter.
Talk about, just like with the Westman, this is a fucking miscarriage of justice.
Not charged at all for the poor little Jack's murder.
Jack's
murder. And so what happens then?
Well, the community is outraged, as you can imagine. This monster, a child killer, is going to be eligible for parole at some point because he's only given 25 to life for Karen Hill's murder. Shawcross will only serve 14 and a half years for this child's murder.
That just blows my mind.
Double child murderer, 14 and a half years in state prison. So while he's in prison, of course, he is the target of abuse by many of the other prisoners. I mean, they don't like child murderers. So it takes some time for him to adjust to life behind bars again. He's examined by numerous social workers and therapists. And Arthur, I mean, to have the IQ of only 86, he is very manipulative. And he is able to manipulate most of these professionals into believing that he's a reformed person.
Yeah, he is. That definitely doesn't stop him from being a manipulative sociopath, psychopath, whatever.
However, one psychologist describes Arthur as a dangerous schizoid psychopath, warning that his release will be catastrophic. He's a model prisoner, though. He divorces his third wife, Penny, while behind bars because she refuses to visit him. While in prison, he earns his GED in 1978, and he takes college horticulture classes and earns B averages in those. During one of his evaluations, Arthur is cited as being safe and a contributing member of society.
Yeah, but here you go.
He's released in April of 1987 despite protests from a senior parole officer and the psychologist. And I guess we have to consider the time. I mean, this was the 1980s in New York when the crack epidemic was the focus. So a child murderer gets to go free because they had other criminals to get off the streets, you know, like drug users and drug dealers.
Yeah, that doesn't really make sense to me, but I'm sure there was pressure to go ahead and take a hard look at these first paroles coming up on these, 10, 15, 20-year-old sentences. Like, well, if they have a chance, put them back out there so we can lock up some poor schmuck for a dime bag.
Yeah, this crackhead who just wants to mow your yard for $5, right, Dylan?
Yeah, or let Arthur Shawcross out after he viciously murdered
2 children.
And brutalized 2 children.
After his release, Arthur moved to Binghamton, where his arrival was met with protests from the community. No one wanted Arthur as a neighbor. When employers found out that Arthur was a child killer and a pedophile, they fired him. He'd take a new job, then someone would ask him why he was in prison. He would say things like, "A drunk driver killed my pregnant wife, so I killed him," to get sympathy.
Yeah, see, that's what makes me wonder about, because it's always when you want sympathy, oh, I was attacked and raped. Oh, my mother, did this to me. My sister was doing this to me. It's always like he wants to get sympathy in different situations.
And because it was a manslaughter charge, he would tell people it was something like that. Like someone injured his wife, injured his kid, killed his wife or kid, and he was just getting revenge on them.
Yeah,
type of thing.
Right. So he took the truth, I murdered and brutalized 2 small children and tortured them, and that's the truth. And he's spinning it to people like, oh, like the classic, got in a fight at a hockey game with another parent and the guy falls down and, dies or whatever, and then I got manslaughter. But in truth, he's a fucking monster.
Well, as soon as people would find out what he'd really done, they were outraged and he'd get canned from another job. Like, he just couldn't keep a job. No one wanted him around. People hated him. He moved to Delhi, New York with his new girlfriend, Rose Wally. Now, this is where her family lived. Rose had been his prison pen pal, which blossomed into romance. I just have ew written there.
Ew.
There wasn't much difference when they moved to Delhi. As soon as people discovered who Arthur Shawcross was, no one wanted him around. So he was essentially ran out of town again by like an angry mob of people.
They're just like, we're not having it. We know who you are, what you did, and you're not living here.
Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. I mean, if he had really changed or something, which you'll go on to find he didn't, maybe I would feel differently about it, but I just know what a piece of shit he is.
Finally, Arthur's probation officer, seeing that no matter where Arthur went, he stood no chance of acclimating back to a quote-unquote normal life, decided to move him to Rochester, New York. Now, the problem was that no community was going to accept him, but New York State didn't want to send him back to prison. The officer purposefully failed to report Arthur's status to local law enforcement, and basically didn't tell them that a convicted pedophile and child murderer was living in the area.
Well, I guess in this case, he'd been handling this guy, trying to get him back into society, and he keeps coming up with these issues. People literally running him out of a neighborhood or community, getting fired constantly. I guess he thought he was doing the right thing in that situation to maybe give this guy a chance to reacclimate and maybe be okay, but yeah, it doesn't look good.
It's just another case of the system repeatedly failing, and in the end, all these people are victimized.
Well, there's a reason that everyone around should know these types of people are near, right? I mean, so you can literally watch out for them.
Well, get this. The probation officer went as far as sealing Arthur's files so it was inaccessible to other police departments.
See, now he's going too far. That's going way too far. And if the cops start poking around any at all or asking any questions, they're not going to get answers because of his actions.
He and Rose settled at Normandy Brownstone Apartments in October of 1987. Arthur took a job at Burgonia Produce at the Genessee Valley Regional Market. Arthur had no car, so he rode a bicycle around Rochester. His coworkers thought he was an asshole. Arthur would spin these tall tales about Vietnam to anyone who would listen. He started sexually harassing a 24-year-old coworker named Loretta Neal. And when she complained about it, Arthur was reprimanded. Arthur would whine to management that Loretta was sleeping with everyone else at the company, so why shouldn't he have a shot too? I'm not talking my baby voice and cracker. My name is Arthur.
But she won't give me no nana. Arthur wants a nana.
But what happened, and this is so fucked up in this Loretta situation, it's so bizarre. Loretta's mother, a woman named Clara Neal, and I believe she's 56 years old at this time, she was introduced to Arthur, and they would begin a strange affair.
Ooh.
Now, Clara met him one day while she was picking up her daughter at work. She was instantly attracted to Arthur with his dyed jet black hair and overall appearance, calling it love at first sight.
Ah, yeah. So you got this guy with the dyed hair, the glasses, the just straight blue denim jeans, I bet.
He looked like a Mr. Potato Head with some jet black hair.
And like the white or maybe I don't know if it'd even be pastel, but.
Probably wearing like a members only jacket.
A members only jacket and the white button up.
Probably some white New Balance tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Or maybe at this time the Ramirez white Avias.
The Avia.
Of course, Ramirez's were black because he was a little bit cooler than the white tennis shoes. But yeah, so she just thinks he's like the best looking thing she's ever seen and doesn't give a shit that this guy's been sexually harassing her daughter.
How weird
What
that?
a piece of work, right? She sounds like a real winner. Arthur had Clara's number and began calling her every time he'd have a fight with Rose. And when I say have a fight with Rose, I mean Arthur would beat the fuck out of her and then would call Clara about the fight. Only he would flip it around saying Rose was at fault. She was abusive.
Well, yeah.
Then Clara would invite him over and he would spend the night weeping in her arms like a baby.
Well, that's what he's always going to do. He's always going to make up some excuse and never take responsibility. I mean, these are very unhealthy traits on top of being very mean. See, there's a lot of people that are built like Arthur, except they just lack that vicious, that mean element. And that's the one thing that keeps them from being, some kind of sicko killer, is they're missing that one element. But there's a lot of people built like that with the narcissism and the no self-awareness and, right? Don't you agree?
I do, Dylan.
Oh my man, that was very in-depth.
I feel like we know these people. I know a few of these people.
And people out there listening know these people. They know these people that are narcissistic as hell, lack empathy towards other people. Just, never, ever can just take a step back and be like, wait, those people are doing that because of my behaviors or what I'm doing. No, they'll just blame everybody else around them.
Well, the one thing about his relationship with Claire and Neil, she had a car. She had a Dodge Omni. And Arthur would borrow her car quite a bit. So he'd ride his little bike over to Clara's house and then take the Dodge out for a spin.
Those are cool little cars.
Are they?
You don't remember the Omni?
Are they like a hatchback?
Yeah, they're a little tiny one.
I vaguely remember those. I think my aunt had one of those in like the 80s. I feel like it was a burgundy color.
That sounds about right.
And she only had it for like a little bit because then she upgraded to a Dodge Shadow.
Ooh. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a super tiny hatchback with a real big back glass in it.
Almost like a Volkswagen Rabbit or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Had that similar like body style.
Yeah, it's just a tiny car.
Soon after, Arthur began cruising the seedy red light district of Rochester. I mean, does Rochester really have a red light district? I only use that term because it kind of cracked me up. But I guess there was this area, Lake Avenue, that was kind of known for the sex workers and drug dealers would hang out there. And it was like a rundown former industrial area.
Yeah, and you got a lot of beer signs and some fluorescents and I don't know, maybe adult bookstore or two or something like that.
Like Hot Girls Now.
Yeah, I mean, just
live peep shows. I don't even think it was that exciting.
It wasn't that far, but I mean, it's kind of, you can tell it's just kind of the maybe wrong side of the tracks looking place.
Do you think if people were going to describe our hometown, they would say like Frog Level was the red light district?
Maybe. Depends on what time of year they come through there.
Okay. Well,
I think we live on the wrong side of the tracks.
We do, definitely. This neighborhood is very sketchy.
It's up and coming neighborhood.
I'm glad our rent is cheap. Well, it hasn't been gentrified yet.
Lots of potential.
But soon it will be. So he hangs out around Lake Avenue, and he becomes a frequent customer to the sex workers, calling himself Mitch.
So he's just going with a whole new name.
Going with the name Mitch. Now, no one knows exactly what triggers Arthur's change, but Christmas of 1987, Arthur had purchased his mother a $60 clock. You know, he always wants her approval. His parents refused to visit him on the holiday, so Arthur mailed this extravagant clock to her. I don't know if it had a little cuckoo bird, I don't know, but it was like a fancy clock.
So that's, I mean, $60 is a good chunk back then, right?
His mother sends it back unopened, calling the clock trash and a waste of money.
Oh.
Now, this seemed to really send Arthur over the edge.
He doesn't like rejection.
March 15th of 1988, Arthur picked up a sex worker, 27-year-old Dorothy Blackburn. She was a drug addict who had 3 children. They agree on a price for oral sex, as Arthur, again, he had trouble with erections, and he only wanted mutual oral sex. I can't think of another way to describe it, mutual, except for there's that number. It just seems like a little crass.
You're both giving and receiving the oral sexes.
Right. Now, Arthur will say they parked somewhere behind a warehouse. Oh, and I should mention that Dorothy, I mean, there were a lot of misconceptions about HIV and AIDS at this time, and Dorothy believed she specialized in like oral sex as a prostitute, as a sex worker, because she believed you couldn't get AIDS or HIV from oral sex.
Okay.
So that was like what she did. So they agree on a price, whatever. They park behind a warehouse, and they began performing oral sex on each other. For some reason, Dorothy bites Arthur's penis. So in turn, he bites her labia.
Oh, no.
He then squeezes her throat until she loses consciousness, ties her up with her own clothes, and drives her to Northampton Park, which is near the Salmon River. He says that she's insulting him the entire time, making fun of him, so he rapes her, then kills her by strangulation, then dumps her body in the river.
Well, yeah, he's going to try to justify it, but he just decided to kill this woman. I mean, there's nothing else to it.
He then drives back to Rochester, where he goes to his favorite coffee shop, which happens to be a Dunkin'. Arthur's running on Dunkin'.
So he thought he'd get his favorite drink right after he murdered this woman.
They're going to go make the donuts. Arthur's there. He's going to have some coffee. Just chill out. Afterwards, he cleans out the car. He throws away any traces of Dorothy, any clothes or garments, that kind of thing left behind. Then he drops the Dodge off at Clara's house and bikes home like nothing happened. A few months later, Dorothy's body is found floating down the river. Due to the cold temperatures, the body is not as badly decomposed as you might think, but of course, all the evidence has been washed away. Investigators are horrified when they discover a large portion of her labia and vagina have been removed.
So he like bit it off?
I reckon.
Sounds like maybe.
Her.
So these guys, these people that can do this type of thing and then go get their favorite coffee, clean out the car, drop it off, and go home and sleep, eat dinner and sleep. Like nothing's wrong. Nothing at all. Because most normal or regular humans would be out beside themselves. They would be out of their mind for what they have just done. Couldn't stop thinking about it.
Panicking,
puking, obsessing.
In a trash can or something.
Yeah, just like can't live with what's happened, just horrible images in their head. But someone like Arthur can just go home and sleep like a baby. Like, I mean, that's always fascinated me because I think that missing in these people's personality and their brain is the one thing that allows them to do everything else.
The lack of empathy?
Yeah, and no regret, no guilty conscience.
No regrets?
No regrets.
Now, her genital area has been completely mutilated, and later Arthur will admit he cannibalized this. During an interview, when he is asked what eating human flesh is like, he compares it to eating a rare steak with a little bit of fat on it.
Yeah, that's what it's like. A piece of rare steak with some fat on it.
Ooh.
Ooh is right.
It is after murdering... You guys like that? It is after murdering Dorothy that Arthur's employer learns of his crimes and he's let go from that produce job. And that's in April of 1988. Arthur gets a job at G&G Food Service as a salad maker. Now, would you want Arthur making your salads?
No, I wouldn't want Arthur touching anything that I bring into my home around my children.
Arthur's like, this is my macaroni salad recipe.
Yeah.
I use extra mayo in there.
That's not mayo.
He probably doesn't even use Duke's mayo.
He's not even using utensils to stir it.
Oh, he uses Miracle Whip.
Ugh. Or like that. Oh, that salad
Are
dressing.
you trying to say that he makes dick salad? Like he's not using utensils to stir his macaroni salad? He's like using his gigantic penis? Is that what you're saying, Dylan?
Dude,
are you insinuating that?
He's using that salad dressing, that sandwich spread with the red dots and specks in it. You know what I'm talking about?
Isn't that kind of like Miracle Whip?
It's just called salad dressing. Like literally.
I feel like my great-grandpa used to buy that.
Oh, this is definitely an old-timers thing that would be.
I feel like he would put that on Mater sandwiches,
yes.
Which is blasphemy.
And this stuff is just really, really sweet.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh, and it spreads like mayonnaise.
Ew.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ew is the word of the day.
That's what he would use in his macaroni salad.
So he's working at G&G Food Service making the salads. Before he's fired from the produce job, though, he does manage to have sex with another prostitute and doesn't murder her. I mean, this just displays that he does have some self-control.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess in the end of the story, everybody will know what you mean exactly by that because he definitely can control who he does and doesn't kill and when he does it.
He picks up another sex worker on June 28th without murdering that woman. Again, I mean, he's capable of self-control when it comes to his criminal tendencies. On July 8th of 1989, Arthur picks up a sex worker named Anna Steffen in front of the Finger Hut store on Lake Avenue. He drives her to the Genessee River Gorge near Driving Bridge Park. He agrees to pay her $20 for sex, but when he can't get an erection, he says Anna makes fun of him. And she spent 40 minutes with him, so of course she wants to keep the money. I mean, you've taken up 40 minutes of my time.
Well,
whether
yeah.
you can perform or not is not my problem. This is still my $20. Angry, Arthur attacks the woman. He punches her. They're outside of the vehicle at this point. She tries crawling away from him, so Arthur drags her into the river, holds her head underwater until she drowns. Then he lets her body float downstream.
So this is the second victim he's killed.
Yes.
Well, the second woman.
second that we know of.
Yeah.
And the body gets caught up in some debris as it floats down the river. Now, Arthur's next victim is a woman he considers a friend. 59-year-old Dorothy Keller is a homeless woman who works at a diner that Arthur frequents. At some point, he even allows Dorothy to stay at his apartment. She will often work as a housekeeper for Rose and Arthur. During the course of their friendship, Dorothy and Arthur begin a 2-month-long sexual affair.
A little fling.
So he's got Rose, Clara Neal, and this other woman.
Damn, so that really surprises you, right? Because he's kind of gross looking.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem particularly bright.
Or charming. He's
yeah, I mean,
like
everybody
an
says
asshole.
he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And he's like a liar and a blowhard, so I don't see what the appeal is at all.
Yeah, even for more than a minute, right? I mean, really.
Yeah.
Sounds like a just very unpleasant person to be around.
I feel like if I met Arthur Shawcross in the first 30 seconds, I would run as far as I could in the opposite direction. On July 29th of 1989, Arthur is going fishing in Clara's Dodge Omni. He sees Dorothy Keller, who invites herself to come along. She wants to do some fishing as well. So the pair drive out to one of Arthur's favorite fishing holes. At some point, the pair get into an argument over money. Arthur believes she's been stealing from his apartment. And I think they made love, as Arthur described it, before they had this argument. So they had some sex, and then he gets mad at her and says, "You've been taking my money." Now, during this confrontation, Dorothy threatens to reveal the details of their affair. "I'm going to tell Rose." Arthur picks up a log and beats Dorothy to death. After the murder, he hides her body, but returns about a week later to remove her head. Dorothy's body won't be discovered until October. So Arthur will admit that he returns to the body several times after the murder to have sex with the body.
Yeah, you're talking an extended period of time.
Weeks.
Has gone
days
by.
And weeks go by. And he'll go have sex with the body and then come back. And he's removed the head.
So much time's gone by, so much decomposition, that in his words, the head was just loose. Like he just picked it up. It wasn't like he had to cut it off or break it away from the body or anything. It's basically decomposed that far. And then he just throws the head in the river. I mean, I can't say anything else about it. But he's still coming back and having some kind of something with the body.
Yeah. He's a romantic.
No, he's a very sick individual, and he gets a lot out of coming back to these scenes. The smells, everything, I think, excites him.
Ew. Again. Ew. That's my only response to everything he does. Arthur and Rose get married in August of 1989 after 2 years of cohabitating. Art invited, a lot of people, to this wedding reception. Everyone he knows, he invites to this reception, and he makes a ton of food. But only 2 people show up.
Really?
The boyfriend of Rose's daughter and his mother attend. Because again, no one likes Arthur.
Because he's an asshole.
And I guess he couldn't invite the sex workers because they think he's Mitch, and then they'll find out he's really not Mitch, he's Arthur.
Had to be like that movie we saw with Henry Winkler, where they start investing him and Michael Keaton. Was it The Night Shift?
I think so.
They start investing the prostitutes' money for him and stuff, and growing their capital.
Yeah, that cheesy 80s movie. Did it have Shelley Long?
Yes, it was.
Was Shelley Long?
Yeah, so he's like that. Yeah, so he can't invite all the women of the night.
His host of female friends can't come to the wedding?
No, because they'll find out he's not Mitch.
Can you imagine, though, you plan this big wedding reception and spend tons and tons of money on food, and Arthur's probably making his famous macaroni salads or whatever, and then no one shows up to your party?
Well, you should get people to RSVP, right? For one thing. And I'm sure that bothered him.
Respondez, s'il vous plaît.
But it would also maybe make me think, hey, why doesn't anyone like me? And it's probably instinctually on those people's part, the lizard part of their brains, something's not right with this guy. Besides him just being a blowhard and an asshole.
They don't want to go to your wedding reception, do the electric slide.
They just don't want to be around you.
No. He then murders a 25-year-old sex worker named Patricia Ives, and her nickname was Crazy Patty. This was on September 29th of 1989. Arthur claims that he saw her at the diner where Dorothy Keller worked. He offered her $25 for oral sex. He takes her to a construction site where the pair found a dirt mound to conduct their business. It's business time.
That's very romantic.
Super romantic. I told you, he's full of romance.
Hey, girl, you see that gravel pit over there? You just get on down there and get undressed, and I'll be down in a minute.
This is why I've chosen the story for Valentine's Day, because romance is in the air. While they were having mutual oral sex, Patricia tried to steal his wallet, according to Arthur.
He always has his reasoning, the reason he lost it.
I mean, I don't know what kind of oral sex they were having, but if they're performing mutual oral sex and then she's trying to reach and steal the wallet out of his pants, that just seems like there's a lot. I'm not sure if I'm that coordinated.
Well, it just seems like there's no way you're going to do that because the person's definitely going to see you trying to steal their money.
You would think.
So if you're going to make a move, maybe you should. That's probably not true at all.
Arthur flies into a rage, hits her head on the ground. Then he proceeds to sodomize her while strangling her until she is still. He hides her body under some scraps of construction material and then heads home.
See, I think he's figured out that this extreme violence turns him on to the point where he can perform sexually. And so he's going to do this no matter what. He has it in his head. And like you pointed out, he does all this in fairly quick succession, right?
Well, and we'll get into this in a moment, but up until this point, law enforcement are just dismissing these murders like these are John's or an angry pimp who's killed the sex worker. They're not really tying these murders together yet.
No, and they're giving it the usual treatment. Oh, they're just a piece of trash on the street.
They're a drug addict. They're
That's
a sex
what
worker.
happens to drug addicts. That's what happens to sex workers. Oh, well. I mean, it's that attitude, too, probably.
It's not long after, in October of 89, that Arthur is cruising again for sex when he picks up 32-year-old Frances Brown. Now, Arthur will say that he choked Frances to death with his penis.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he said he just got so carried away with the oral sex that he just crammed his penis down her throat and basically choked her to death.
Jesus.
Then he continues having sex with her body after she's dead. He tosses her down an embankment, and there's like a lot of debris and just shit everywhere, and it drags down with the body. So, in essence, it like hides this body, and when they finally find it, it appears as though somebody has intentionally covered her up.
Really?
And she's going to be found November 11th of 1989 in the Genessee River Gorge. By this time, law enforcement, who have been hesitant to label these murders as the work of a serial killer, along with the media, began piecing together that this seems to be one person preying on sex workers. He is labeled the Genessee River Killer or the Rochester Strangler. Law enforcement realized with sex workers, these women are terrified at this point. So in order for this murderer to move freely among them and to get them in the vehicle to go with him, they have to be comfortable with these Lake Avenue girls. So it's got to be a person they trust. They think it's a frequent John.
Well, and that's pretty good. And I guess we should give the cops a bit of a benefit of the doubt because he doesn't have a particular MO. It's not a certain knife. It's not a gun shooting them a certain way. Everything's kind of opportunistic with Arthur. There's no certain weapon or way he's doing this. He's just doing it on the fly.
Some of the women they interview, the sex workers, will mention a guy named Mitch, who's a regular customer. That name pops up quite a bit, and they will say that he has been violent with them at times. So they don't have a last name. They've got Mitch. They have a description of Mitch. June Stotts is a 30-year-old mentally disabled woman who is friends with Arthur and Rose. She's often a visitor to their home. One day, June is sitting on a bench by the river when she encounters Arthur. He asks her to go on a ride with him in Clara's car. The pair drive down to a local beach area where they play in the sand, they frolic, they feed some ducks, and they make love.
Sweet love.
Sweet love. Arthur will later say that he kind of makes a joking comment about June no longer being a virgin after this, and the woman freaks out. She threatens to tell Rose. He suffocates her to death, then takes a knife and splits her open from neck to groin. He removes her genital area, which he eats.
Jesus.
And her body is found a month later.
My God, could you imagine finding her body like that?
No. This is just horrible.
Split from neck to growing.
Mm-hmm.
So completely laid open.
Yeah, just totally mutilated. 22-year-old Marie Welch went missing on November 5th of 1989. Arthur picked her up on Lake Avenue, drove her to a beach near the Genessee River, where they haggled over the price for sex. He will again say that she tries to steal his wallet, but then he'll later change his story that she was menstruating and that made him mad.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just, it's all bullshit. At this point, when he takes these women, I think he knows what he's going to do. He's going to keep feeding this appetite for what he's discovered that he really likes.
He strangles Marie, then he puts her back in the car, drives her down the road, finds some bushes next to the river, and that's where he discards her body. His next victim is a woman named Elizabeth Gibson. Now, she got into Arthur's car to keep warm while he was inside Dunkin' getting some coffee. They agree to have oral sex in the car. Arthur strangles her, but she fights him. She fights him so hard, in fact, that she breaks the gear shift in the car.
Really?
He disposes of her body in Wayne County because he has been following news reports and he knows that the police is now onto him. So he thinks, well, I'll just throw her out in this other county and they won't know it's me.
Well, or stay away from some other areas that he frequents that are hot and heavy under surveillance now.
He then kills 32-year-old Darlene Trippi and then 34-year-old June Cicero. Like with some of the other victims, Arthur will dump June's body over a bridge into the Salmon into the Salmon River. 2 days later, he returns with a handsaw to remove her genitals, which he cannibalizes.
2 days later.
2 days later. His final victim is 19-year-old Felicia Stevens. Unlike his other victims, Felicia was an African-American woman whom he happened to pick up on Lake Avenue. He strangles her, then dumps the body near those of Dorothy Blackburn and Jean Cicero. On December 31st, 1989, some hikers find a pair of blue jeans with her ID in the pocket, the Felicia Stevens ID. Law enforcement performed an aerial search, and they spot a vehicle nearby and record the license plate. When they trace the plate, it belongs to a woman named Clara Neal.
Well, there you go.
A photo of Arthur Shawcross is shown to some area sex workers, and they are able to identify him as Mitch. Police have shown up at Clara's house at this point. They get the photo of Arthur. They are questioning her, and then they threaten to implicate her in the murders if she doesn't talk, because he used your vehicle, and Clara also had jewelry from one of the victims.
Oh, really?
So they're like, we can easily charge you as an accomplice. You'll go to jail.
Well, I mean, she should just tell the truth.
Well, she does.
Right.
And she gives up the photo of Arthur. I don't have anything to do with this. I don't know.
I'm sure she returned the jewelry.
Well, to save Clara, Arthur finally confesses to the murders, detailing reasons why he was forced to do it. Of course, he has no control. This is someone else's fault. Arthur Shawcross went to trial in November of 1990 for the murders of 10 women in Monroe County, New York. His defense team wanted to be able to, paint him as insane and use that insanity defense. They cite his childhood abuse, head injuries, that he has PTSD from Vietnam, but he was found sane to stand trial. He was found guilty and given 10 life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. He was later taken to Wayne County, where he was tried for Elizabeth Gibson's murder, given an 11th life sentence. Now, over the years, Shawcross has justified the murders with a number of elaborate stories. One of his tales is that a sex worker had AIDS, and that he was killing the women he thought were carrying HIV and AIDS, women that he thought had infected him.
Yeah, see, didn't he also state that he was cannibalizing pieces of their vagina because he thought it would help the AIDS along, help it kill him
He would kill him
quicker?
faster, yes.
Okay.
Another story was that he believed he was possessed by a 13th century cannibal named Arames. His possession led to the rape, murder, and cannibalization of these women. He even appeared in a 2003 documentary about cannibals. In 1997, Clara Neal married Arthur Shawcross while he was in prison.
Really?
And Arthur died November 10th of 2008 after going into cardiac arrest. His body was cremated.
So,
by Arthur.
Here you have this guy who did these horrible things to these two children in Watertown, and he will not talk about Watertown. He doesn't even want to discuss it. He won't talk about the case. He won't talk about the victims. He'll tell all these big stories about the rest of the victims.
We watched a documentary. Was it Interview with a Serial Killer?
Yes.
Is that what it was called?
On Netflix.
Okay, Netflix, Interview with a Serial Killer. They sit down with Arthur Shawcross. He's very vague in his answers, mostly refuses to answer any question, go into detail about any of the murders, but specifically will not discuss Watertown and the two children, as you mentioned.
Right. And some people think it's because he can't assign any can't find any reason. You know, he had all these reasons with these other women.
They tried to steal
from me. They did this to me. They lied. They made me mad. But he can't assign that kind of blame.
There's no justification for killing two children.
And that's no justification, but in his mind, it makes it okay. He can tell the story like that. There's no way to do that with two children. Right? So, and I think that's why he won't discuss it in any form or fashion.
Also in the interview, the person who's, conducting, the line of questioning, mentions that Arthur has grandchildren. He has a daughter that he reunites with while he's in prison. She starts visiting him, brings her children to meet this fucking psychopath.
She brings her children, his grandchildren. So apparently, at some point, Arthur had a relationship with a woman in Hawaii.
When he was in the Army,
When he was in the Army.
A brief fling.
A brief fling, and then she got pregnant, and he never knew. And then since in his adult life, here's come this, grown adult daughter of his. She
has 7 kids.
Yeah, and she's bringing 2 of the grandkids that are the age of the kids that he murdered, and originally
to visit Grandpa in prison.
Yeah, so I'm just not sure about that. I mean, I guess you have a right to reach out to your family and stuff.
Well, her comments are strange. She's like, "Oh, well, he's just a completely different person."
Yeah, this is a different.
This is a different version of him.
Only reason he's not been killing this entire time is because he was locked away.
Right.
And that's period. That's why he did that to those kids. It spent, 14, 15 years, came right out, and not that long started again, right?
A second set of, murders, basically.
Yeah, and 11 women inside of what, months?
Like 18, 20-month period of time.
Yeah, in less than a couple of years. 11 women.
And there possibly could have been more that we just don't know about.
And you said a couple of the murders were less than 2 or 3 hours apart from each other?
They were within days of each other.
Within days of each other?
I mean, he would murder one woman and then pick another up in 3 days' time, kill her. And, of course, the bodies were not discovered in, chronological sequence. I mean, some were found sooner and others later, that kind of thing. But we only know about the 11. There could have been many more.
Well, there's no telling. I mean, the group of people he was preying on, it's a very cliche, very classic, whole marginalized community that people don't care when they get disappeared.
What I thought was so telling, the interviewer asks Arthur, "What if this were your grandchildren? How would you feel if someone murdered your grandchildren like that?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I would be mad. They would deserve to die."
Right.
Right? And then that person's like, "Well, you don't have any empathy for these victims or their families? What you did?" And he says, "No, I have no empathy for them."
Nope, he doesn't care at all.
He said, "I don't care at all."
And he shouldn't have got to live his years out in jail. I'm sorry. Once you get to a certain level of preying and killing humans and torturing and being vicious and brutalizing and just all this sick shit, you don't deserve to live. In our society, you're connected. You don't deserve to live longer than your victims did. I'm sorry.
Well, at least he's dead now.
Oh, yeah, but he got to live his years out. I mean, at least he probably got his ass kicked multiple times in jail and ostracized to a certain degree, I'm sure.
He should. He's a piece of shit.
My God.
Well, one of the resources I used today, a book called The Misbegotten Son, A Serial Killer and His Victims by Jack Olson. You can find it on Kindle. The other books about Arthur Shawcross, I should mention, are really expensive.
You said they're hard to come by, right?
A couple of them are very hard to come. There aren't many books about him. There's not a lot of documentaries. I mean, I'm surprised because he's a prolific serial killer.
Well, I mean,
one of the most gruesome, brutal. I mean, I don't know why he is not up there with like the top 10.
By far. I mean, you give him what he did in his earlier crimes, and then later on that streak of victims and the stuff he did, and the how quick he did it, and his sheer lack of remorse. I mean, yeah, he's definitely one of the worst monsters I've ever seen or read about.
But I was surprised. Some of the books are retailing like on eBay for like $100 for like a paperback.
Oh, I have to remember that. The Goodwill. Keep my eye out.
Right.
For the...
And then, of course, I use newspapers. I go to newspapers.com, able to find a whole lot of newspaper archives there. And there was a lot of information on the internet, like Murderpedia, that kind of thing. So you can learn more about Arthur Shawcross if you'd like. And, of course, I will post some photos of Arthur on Instagram. And you can go scroll through those and see what I'm talking about, that he looks like Mr. Potato Head.
And if that one thing Heather got me to watch, Interview with a Serial Killer on Netflix, is a good, in his, you hear him speak. It was a interview back in, I think, maybe 2004 or 5.
It's always fascinating to hear the killer's words.
Well, you can get a lot out of his body language and stuff, that you know that he is this cold asshole who doesn't care.
And doesn't seem particularly bright.
But he still was very manipulative.
Yeah, how does that work?
I don't. I mean, it goes to show you that the two aren't directly connected.
Now, one thing that I thought was interesting, I failed to mention earlier, but I wanted to like get in there, is when they determined they had a Rochester serial killer who was preying on these sex workers, they compared his MO and his work to the Green River Killer. And there were some theories that perhaps the Green River Killer had come to the East Coast and was doing work on the East Coast.
Really?
Like a bi-coastal killer.
Yeah.
Because there were so many similarities between Arthur Shawcross and Gary Ridgway.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting.
So there for a minute, they thought it was literally the same person.
Yes, they did.
Wow.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to this Valentine's edition Mountain Murders. And, of course, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can email Mountain Murders.
Oh, we're about to forget to call out our best friends.
Mountainmurderspodcast at gmail.com. And, oh, yeah, we have a couple new patrons to shout out, right, Dylan?
Yes, we do. We have a lot of them, actually, in our book. Let's see. I think we're all the way back at Myra. Thank you, Myra. Thank you very much, Tessa. Tessa's sassy. She's a sassy one, right?
I love those sassy gals.
And Nicholas. Thank you very much, Nicholas. And Phyllis. We really appreciate your support. And Bittersweet Brittany. I hope I said that right.
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, Brittany.
Also, we had a contribution via Venmo. So thanks, Kate.
Oh, wow.
She sent us a little money to support the podcast.
Thank you, Kate. And that does really support us, keeps us going.
If you would like to support the podcast, Dylan, tell them how they can do that.
If you go to patreon.com/Mountain Murders
Podcast.
Mountain Murders Podcast, you can find us there. And there's different tiers of support for for just a couple of bucks. You can get on board with lots of extra content and the ad-free experience on everything.
And you get some perks. Like there's some merch that comes with that as well.
And we do polls.
At various tiers. Yeah, we do polls, and we allow our patrons to vote on show topics. We are allowing our patrons to vote on Wednesday's Celebrity Conspiracy Theory, the new offbeat we've got coming out, since we're doing this little series on celebrity conspiracy theories.
I think they've already spoken.
Yeah, they have. So we've got a great offbeat coming out on Wednesday. It's going to be really exciting, and we're just so happy to be here. Isn't that right, Dylan?
Yes, we are, and we're happy for all our other listeners, too, and we really appreciate it.